I think the obstacles that's a given. They're going to happen. There's going to be obstacles, but if you have like a strong why for what you're doing, a strong vision, then I don't think really anything should stop you. And I think it's also important that you pick something that you enjoy doing too. So I always say this: if you can do something for no money, then you can definitely do it for money. So I would pick something that you're happy doing for no money, enjoying the process, having a good time at it, on a day to day, and not being too caught up in the destination and the materials or whatever it might get you, but just enjoying what you're doing and making sure you're putting out the best content or, making the best business deals or doing whatever you can to, propel yourself forward, because there's going to be setbacks and obstacles. That's just going to happen. But if you have a strong reason for doing what you're doing and you enjoy it, then you won't quit. And if you don't quit, then you can't fail. So that's kind of goes hand in hand.
This is episode number 9 of Keep Me Inspired podcast show with Aaron B Patton.
Welcome guys to Keep Me Inspired. My name is Shivatma Chennai and I am your host for this show. Every 15 days I will be interviewing today's most inspiring and successful personalities who will range from CEOs, YouTubers, authors and other change makers in order to help you to make early life-changing decisions and realize your true worth.
Hey everyone, today in this episode we have with us Aaron B Patton. Aaron B Patton is a part of millennial generation who believes everyone should make a living by doing something they love. He is the host of 5-star top-rated podcast show called New Age Influencers. He has completed 100 plus interviews with major social influencers, celebrities and entrepreneurs. New Age Influencer podcast is featured in 30 plus publications and podcasts. Bro, I would like to start our conversation by talking about your past. In your LinkedIn profile, I saw that you studied in University of South California, then worked in several sales companies, and then started New Age Influencer podcast. Bro, how this all started?
So thank you for having me on, and hello to everyone who's listening. Hopefully it can be informational and helpful for you today. So thank you for the intro. Yes, I started my career in corporate software sales. I actually went to the University of South Carolina, not Southern California. It's the other USC. A lot of times people get that mixed up. And I just got my first job out of college in Washington, D.C. for a building materials company in a sales role. And then from there, I just started, producing and leveling up and getting into better positions at different companies. And I eventually landed in software sales, which I worked at 3 or 4 different companies with different products and services in different industries. And I eventually got to a point where I wanted to start working for myself and start selling for myself. And I wasn't really sure what path I was going to take or how I was going to go about that. But I just kept researching and listening to podcasts and watching YouTube videos, and eventually realized that maybe starting a podcast would be the correct tool for me to start growing some sort of online business and brand. And I haven't looked back since. It's been 2 years. I've had a blast doing it, and it's one of the best networking. I'd say networking hacks in society, because you are able to reach out to interesting people and promote them on your show. And a lot of times the guests that I talk to, they wouldn't give me their time unless I was able to promote them on a podcast. So having a podcast is a really good platform to kind of green light your online business adventure, so to speak.
Yeah, I think if we directly ask the guest to talk about some of our doubts, they wouldn't come. But if we invite them to a podcast, they would definitely come and share their suggestion.
You got it. Exactly.
Bro, what is your daily routine nowadays?
My daily routine. So I live in San Diego, California. I moved to San Diego from Washington, D.C., mostly because I wanted to be by the ocean and for the good weather. And it's going to be a nice 70-degree day today, so I'm going to go for a run after I get done with these interviews. But my daily routine typically is I wake up around. I don't wake up too early. I don't believe in waking up really early if you're not a morning person. I wouldn't consider myself a morning person, so I usually like to stay up later at night rather than get up really early. So I probably get up around 8:39 in the morning, and I make some breakfast. I listen to podcasts. I do all the daily routines, shower, whatnot, unless I'm going to exercise. But I really I'm trying not to look at my phone first thing in the morning these days, because I think if you look at your phone first thing in the morning, you kind of get into a bad mental state with all the news and the media and everything. So I've been trying to do that. I definitely haven't been successful every day at not looking at my phone, but I think that's one of the biggest things that people can do to put themselves in a good mental state for the day, and just being kind of thankful for what you have and where you are, no matter what, because I think it's important to understand that there's always someone that's maybe a little bit worse off than you. So, being thankful and gracious for what you do have, it will allow you to, you know, see kind of get the day going and make it efficient.
Bro, even if some people don't like their job, they would still continue it, even if they are not passionate to it. Why do only few people just step out of their comfort zone and take that leap, and not everyone?
Um, well, I think some people really thrive off risk and risk taking, and I'm one of those people. So I didn't have too much trouble taking that leap of faith. But I think a lot of people are more risk averse, and so they're more attracted to the comfort zone, and they don't really want to push the envelope, and they like the way things are. They like the routines, and that's completely fine. But I think those types of people still have to understand that if you never take any chances or risks, you're always going to have the same type of day, the same type of week, the same type of month, and therefore the same type of life that most of normal society, quote unquote, will have. So in order to kind of break out and do something different, you've got to act differently. So, it's not for everyone, starting your own business and entrepreneurship. It's definitely not for everyone. But even if it's not for you, you can still take chances in your day to day life that, maybe some people wouldn't take. So, for example, going up to someone at a coffee shop and networking, or reaching out to people that you don't know on Instagram through DMs, or raising your hand and asking a question at a conference, during non-COVID times. There's little things that you can do that might really, really have a big impact on your life that you can't ever foresee. But just because you took a little bit of action and didn't just sit back in comfort, your life might be completely different. You might talk to a random stranger at a coffee shop, and they might give you an opinion or insight that totally changes the future jobs you apply to, and therefore that would change your life and your income. So you never know what might happen. You just got to be willing to take a couple of chances here and there, and take it, go forward as is.
Sometime our family, everyone are dependent upon us. Even during such time, is it worth the risk?
If your family's depending on you,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, definitely never put your family at risk when it comes to money or stability. but you can, still have a job, and you can be, working on a side hustle or a side business outside of that job, during, maybe while people are asleep. I mean, it's definitely harder to do that, but if you want it bad enough, that's what you got to do. That's why so few people, make something for themselves, is because it's hard. It takes work. It takes effort. It might take some sleepless nights. It might take, you know, there's gonna be true obstacles in your way. But if you really have kind of a vision for what you want, and you're dead set on it, then nothing, I don't think, should stop you. But definitely don't put your stability or family in jeopardy. If you have dependents, of course you have to provide for them. So it would be irresponsible to quit your job and try to start something without any proven path or already income generated already from that. So definitely
Mhm.
take it at your own pace, but know that if you do nothing, nothing's going to happen. So you have to do something.
Bro, what were the initial obstacles when you just switched from your job to a full-time podcasting journey? Did you know that what might gonna happen, or did you plan everything at first?
Yeah, I mean, the obstacles, I'd say the biggest obstacle is just um, the syndrome of thinking that you might not be, able to do what you want to do. Like, going forward, and not actually achieving what you want, and not hitting your goals, because it's hard. You're going to have setbacks, you're going to have mistakes, but you're going to have to learn from them. And that's part of the journey. Is part of it is being willing to take action, even if you're uncomfortable, and learning from your, mistakes or feedback you get, and pivoting and making adjustments so that you can be better as you go forward. So I think the obstacles are, that's a given. They're going to happen. There's going to be obstacles, but if you have like a strong why for what you're doing, a strong vision, then I don't think really anything should stop you. And I think it's also important that you pick something that you enjoy doing too. So I always say this: if you can do something for no money, then you can definitely do it for money. So I would pick something that you're happy doing for no money, while, enjoying the process, having a good time at it, on a day to day, and not being too caught up in the destination and the materials or whatever it might get you, but just enjoying what you're doing, and making sure you're putting out the best content, or, making the best business deals, or doing whatever you can to, propel yourself forward, because there's going to be setbacks and obstacles. That's just going to happen. But if you have a strong reason for doing what you're doing, and you enjoy it, then you won't quit. And if you don't quit, then you can't fail. So that's kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, exactly. When you do something you love, even if you don't see progress, your love towards it will make you do it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what, I'm sure Gary Vee. So he's just always talking about the process. And I think it's underrated advice, because it's true. You have to enjoy the process, because whether you start making money from what you want to do in a year, 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, 8 years, like, it doesn't matter. As long as you're enjoying it, then you'll have won no matter what.
Bro, taking risk, even though you have potential, not many people do this. They will just lead their way the way it is. They won't take risk, later regret in their life. Do you think this kind of thing, risk taking, entrepreneurship, this should be taught in the early stage of a student's life? What is your take on this? Like, should this topic should be introduced in future students in early life, like school times and all?
Yeah, I do. So I think the school system is really good the way it is for up to, maybe seventh or eighth grade. But after middle school, when you go into high school, I think they should really start teaching more useful topics, and more critical thinking topics around risk taking, and all of that, because after you get the basics of, math, science, history, just the basics of the world, through eighth grade, I think the high school and college curriculums need to change to suit different types of students and not try to fit students into a box, because there's a lot of students that aren't willing or able to fit into that box, but they may be able to bring something fantastic to the world. It's just going to be in
Mhm.
a different way. So, not everyone is cut out just to go to school and get good grades and score high on tests and get a good job that pays a medium salary. Like, of course, that's great for the people who excel at that, but it's not the only path. And I think the coronavirus has flung it into the limelight. I think the coronavirus is going to eventually kill off schools and get into debt with school with the current curriculums at high paying or high cost colleges, because you can
Mhm.
get educated online. I mean, honestly, you can just listen to podcasts and probably get more useful information in a week than you could an entire year of a
Mhm.
professor teaching you something where they're not even implementing the advice they're teaching themselves. So that's my take on it, and that's a common take for
Uh,
a lot of entrepreneurs
mhm.
out there. And I think it's important. Yeah, go ahead.
Even in this corona situation, there are so many courses just popping out in Instagram, Facebook, and all. Bro, some of them are, I think there are two types of gurus. One is fake gurus and one is original gurus. Like there are two kind of teachers. Some are just making money by selling their course, and some are actually sharing value. How do we identify this kind of courses, which one is actually valuable and which one is not?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's the internet, right? So there's going to be plenty of people who are just going to try to make a quick dollar without, actually having done anything legitimate themselves. I've gotten pretty good at identifying those types of people, but it's harder for someone who maybe isn't in this world to identify them. So I would just say, if you're going to sign up for a course from someone, just make sure that they have experience in what they're teaching. If you're going to take a podcasting course from someone, make sure that it's
Mhm.
from someone who has been doing a podcast for at least a decent amount of time and has had some semi success with it. It doesn't make sense to learn podcasting from someone who isn't doing it at a high capacity themselves or at a high quality themselves. If you're going to take a course on, you know, real estate, make sure that that person that you're following or taking a course from has proven that they have, real estate deals that they've closed. And typically, and sometimes it's hard to identify because people can fake it a lot of times. But I think the really big thing is to look at, what are their past customer testimonials, or do they have any, or what are the reviews on their, you know, podcast or channels, or, business softwares or whatever. Just what are the third party reviews? What are the customers saying about what they're doing? What are the clients saying about their interactions with them? Um, Social proof is very important on the internet, because that's really all you have to go off of. Someone can claim that they're the best in the world, but until someone else says and legitimizes it for them and validates it, it's not going to be completely looked at as being honest. You got to get other people to tell you. You got to get other people to say that you actually deliver on your promises.
Mhm.
And for new people who are, if you're trying to create a course as someone who's maybe a little bit newer to the game, you got to start working with people for free and help them for no money, and then just do it in exchange for video testimonials or uh, quotes from them or something like that. And then you can leverage those to start getting paid clients, and then it'll just continue to build and build and build and snowball.
Bro, I've been listening to your podcast, and the way you bring the guest in your podcast is quite unique. And even you mentioned about this in a other guest podcast. But to let my audience know, can you share again that how differently you approach guests and invite them to your show?
You mean just sourcing guests and getting them on the show, or the actual way I introduce the guest?
Uh, how you approach the guest and how do you bring them to your show?
Oh,
Like
okay.
big guest, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I've said this, I've said this before multiple times, and I'll
Hmm.
continue saying it. Most of the guests that I've had on my show have been sourced from Instagram DMs. So just what you did to get me on this show. I
Hmm.
send audio DMs or voice DMs to them, not only because it sets you apart from everyone sending text DMs, but it also says in the little subject line in the DM inbox, it says sent a voice message. So even if someone doesn't follow you, which many of these big time influencers they're not following me, it still says sent a voice message. So they're still curious usually about what this random person has to say to them, and if it's something valuable for them and something that will help their brand and their public awareness, then chances are they'll say yes. A lot of times they don't ever see it. A lot of times they say no, but a percentage say yes. And that's really all that matters, is getting a percentage of your reach outs to say yes, and then it will build up, and you'll build a Rolodex of guests, and then people will see, oh, you've had a lot of people on, and they'll be more willing and more willing and more willing to be on it. So it'll get easier and easier and easier as time goes on. It's really the hardest in the beginning. When I
Hmm.
started my
Yeah.
podcast, you know, I reached out to hundreds and hundreds of people and got maybe 5 or 10% of them responding, and then even a smaller portion saying that they would be on an interview because it wasn't an established podcast yet. All I had to pitch them was my cover art, which I made sure it looked good, and the concept of the podcast, and kind of what I was doing, and if they'd be willing to be in the first wave of guests. And some of them luckily said yes, and then once I got some of those guests, I was able to leverage those past guests into more guests. And again, like anything, it compounds over time. So I just pretty much applied my sales acumen and my sales skills from the corporate software world into Instagram DMs, which I've said a lot, but yeah, it's the truth. So I had a spreadsheet. I had, who the influencer was or entrepreneur, when I reached out to them, if they read the message, what I should do to follow up with them. I had it kind of all organized, and that's what I had done in the past in my sales roles to hit my sales quotas. So I just really did the same thing here, and it's worked out. And now it's 100 interviews in, so a lot more people are willing to say yes. I get a lot more people reaching out to me. I get a lot more referrals, so I don't have to work as hard to get guests. But again, the beginning is really just kind of hitting the pavement, sending a bunch of messages, being organized with a follow up, and just starting the whole thing.
Congratulations on your 100 shows.
Thank you.
I still have a lot to watch. I just listened few of your episodes.
Appreciate that.
What are your top lessons from all these 100 podcasts?
The number one thing is to probably, well, there's a lot, but as of late, the thing that I've been saying is that you need to just do it before you're ready. Take action before you think you're ready, because there's never going to be a perfect time to do anything. So you might as well do it now and see what happens. So, if you're out there, you should start that podcast. You should post that picture, post that video story, start that YouTube channel, or, go into business with a partner, or try to launch a prototype of a product. Just start doing it and start taking action. And some of those things are big, like, yes, they're big undertakings, but you got to start small. So just start taking small actions. So for example, if you plan on starting a podcast, what would your first step be? Well, your first step would be probably Googling and watching YouTube videos about how to start a podcast and what it takes and how to do it.
Mhm.
And then once you research that, for a couple weeks or several weeks or whatever, then you can start looking at, the more details of it. Like, what do I need to do to get cover art? What's my podcast concept going to be about? What's the show going to be about? How am I going to bring on guests? What am I going to do there? It's really more about thinking and planning, and then executing shortly thereafter. So again, you gotta definitely plan, but you gotta do it before you think you're ready. So it's kind of a balance there. I wouldn't just jump into anything without having a plan of execution. but you can't just be planning forever. Some people just love planning and planning and planning and researching and researching and researching and listening and listening and listening, but they never do. And if you never do, then you're never going to learn. And if you never learn, then you're never going to be able to make tweaks to make it as good as possible. So um, I think planned and organized action is key.
If you could go past to your 20-year-old self, what are the five things you would have done differently?
I don't know about five things, but the one thing that I would do differently was I would dedicate at least one day a week to trying to do something like this, to focusing on something productive rather than just partying all the time. So, when you're in your early 20s, you kind of don't really think too much about the future. Like you're young, you don't really care too much. You just kind of care about having a good time with your friends, right? And hanging out,
Yeah.
going to a club or bar or whatever, meeting girls. Well, depending on who you are, but it's really, I think, important for young people, and I think it's easier now because there's so much good content out there that tells you this, is that you should just dedicate some time to thinking about what you want to do permanently, and just
Mhm.
set aside a little bit of time each week. It doesn't have to be a whole weekend. It doesn't have to be even a whole day. It can just be a couple hours a week towards looking at the future and what you might want to do, and then taking some appropriate action for what you think you might want to do, even if it doesn't work out. Just the pure act of maybe trying to start a side hustle or sell some t-shirts, or start a podcast, or just build up an Instagram following or whatever. Those simple acts, will lead to things in the future. But if you never try to start thinking productively like that, and you just are drinking and smoking and all the time and watching football all day, like you're never going to really make progress.
Mhm.
And then, or your progress is going to be delayed. So I would just consider my progress in this capacity delayed. I honestly, I don't regret what I did as far as having a good time. I still worked hard at the software sales jobs I did have, but I didn't turn my brain on for anything outside of that as far as money goes, or true happiness. And I think that's key. It's just really defining what makes you happy, and then being willing to pursue it and take action to allow you to get there. Unfortunately, there's just so many people in life and in this world that are miserable doing what they do every day. It's because they didn't think ahead, and they didn't think in a long-term view as far as what might happen. So I think that's really important now more than ever, just because technology is changing so fast. I think you really need to position yourself for the digital era, which we are in the middle of, but it's only going to increase. It's only going to get, more digitized and more remote. And it's not going to go less. It's going to get more. It's going to get exponentially more and greater. It's going to be exponentially more important for you to have a digital footprint in whatever you do.
Bro, if you want to attribute all your success to one habit or one ritual of yours, what would that be?
One habit, well, I would just say being persistent. Persistence, and not taking, not just giving up if someone says no, or if someone brushes me off, or whatever. It's just, you got to continue to follow up and follow up and follow up for sales, for guests, for me, for that's what I'm doing. I think just being persistent and not stopping has gotten to me where I am right now. I have a long way to go. I haven't made it by any means, but I know I'm on the right path, and I wish that for everyone. As far as a lot of times if they don't have sales training or previous sales experience, then it's hard for people to consistently reach out and let the nose slide off you. But you got to do that if you want to make it in business, because business, online business, brand building. It's pretty much all sales and networking. And there's going to be a lot of people that, don't really want to interact with you, but there'll be plenty who do. So you got to keep going forward.
Bro, in this present era, is it possible to completely rely on our passion and
Uh,
also make a living?
Yeah, so I think it totally is, but it's also really dependent upon your passion. So I think it's a lot of times the truth gets misconstrued because if your passion isn't able to be monetized really effectively, then it might be kind of a fool's chase. So, for example, if your passion is uh, breeding dogs or maybe like hummingbird collections, I don't know, something random, like yes, you may be able to make some money off doing that, but probably not going to make a huge amount of money off doing that. So I think it's really important for people to follow their interests and kind of lead and allow that to lead them into a path that will be able to make them money. So just because you love snowboarding doesn't mean doesn't mean you're going to be able to make money or make a good amount of money snowboarding. Most
Mhm.
people aren't going to be skilled or talented enough to compete in the Olympics or the X Games or anything like that, or even just in local competitions. But they may love snowboarding so much that they want to be snowboarding all the time and be around that atmosphere. So they may start to develop a high income skill. Like maybe they start securing brand partnerships for those snowboarders who are talented enough to win those medals, or maybe they start uh, doing photography for snowboarders and sending those pictures to magazines to get featured on the side. And that way they can be around snowboarding all the time. They can be snowboarding, but they're also doing something that's more lucrative and can make them money. So it's just, I think, combining a high income skill like sales or videography, photography, marketing, follow up, strategic business negotiations, something like that into an industry that you like, I think is more feasible and easier to make a dollar with than purely just trying to go after your passion. Of course, if your passion is, building a business, or your passion is, product development, or your passion is sales or something, like, yeah, you can make money there, but I don't think it's definitely dependent on the person and on their passion and their interests. So for example, I play a lot of poker. I'm a big poker player, and I originally
Mhm.
was playing poker after I quit my job to try to sustain a lifestyle. But I figured out that I didn't want to do poker full time because I didn't want to spend my life in a casino. But I loved it enough where I wanted to spend at least 1 to 2 days playing per week, but not 5 to 6 days playing per week. So I kind of throttled it back, and I just applied kind of what I loved in poker to podcasting as far as learning people's stories and talking the diversity it brings. And I just kind of meshed them together. And I still play a lot of poker, but I don't do it for a full time job. And I think that's important. Understand that your interests and your passions don't have to be your full life. You can try to make money to allow yourself more freedom and time so you can do those things, but it doesn't have to be your full blown um, purpose every single day. But it can be. So I think it's really just dependent on the person, and you just got to be cognizant of really the possible um, monetization of that thing. And a lot of times people don't know really even what they like doing. So I think the first step is really just figuring out what you enjoy and if it can be monetized effectively.
When I went through your website, I just saw that even you have your course on podcasting. Can you just tell what do you teach on this course?
Yeah, so I've done, since I had the podcast, I've done some one-on-one consulting for people for growing and monetizing their podcast. And then um, I just opened it actually into kind of group coaching where I can help multiple people at the same time. And it's brand new actually. So, I just started it, and I'm just playing around with the offer these days, but I haven't truly put in any time to marketing it or selling it yet. But I have it up there. So I want to be able to help podcasters kind of grow and monetize their podcasts in the same fashion I did. So there's a group option in there. But I also do one-on-one consulting right now. But yeah, I'll probably add a layer of video tutorials and things like that into the course consulting kind of framework, and we'll see what happens there. But yeah, it's still a pretty new thing for me, and I'm just like anyone, I'm making shifts and changes to it and tweaks to it as time goes on. And we'll see the response here in the next several months and year.
I hope it goes well because I just went through that intro video and it was amazing. Even in that intro video, I learned few hacks.
Fantastic. Sounds great. Yeah, I think, are you talking about the intro video on the newagepodcasters.com?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I actually just took that video down. I'm gonna put some more videos up. I'm actually gonna do multiple videos for multiple different topics. So that'll be coming to that page shortly.
I just wanted to ask one last question, but before that, I just want to know how can people listening to this podcast can contact with you?
Yep, just the same way you did. So you can send me a DM on the podcast account on Instagram, New Age Influencers Podcast, or you can send me, an email. You can reach out to me on my personal page. You can reach out to me via the website, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok. I'm everywhere. I only put really a heavy amount of time into Instagram right now and podcasting. Those are my main channels of communication. So those are probably the best ways to reach me. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Uh, Bro, just imagine that tomorrow all of a sudden you got invited to the biggest stage of your life. Like that stage is very big, and people from all over the world will come to listen to your talk for 1 minute. What will you share there?
What would I share? I
Yeah.
would I would share something in the realm of what I say in my personal Instagram account, where having fun and taking risks is a key pillar to a lot of people's happiness, and why it's key to people's happiness, and how you can think about it. So it'd be hard to do in a minute, but I would try to talk about something in that regard.
Uh, Thank you so much, bro, for being on this show. It means a lot that you spared your time and been here.
No problem. Thank you for having me on, and I hope the podcast continues to go well for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, bro.